Kanye was, the originator of hacking culture. Shoe empire is worth $1 billion. And he would start a trend. He would wear something and people go, that looks weird. It doesn't look right. And then all of a sudden everybody be wearing it.
Hi, baby, hop in the Lamborghini. I'm needy, on me only, I'm needy. Hi, baby, hop in the Lamborghini. Left for a minute, I do not sweat it. Look at the cash I'm spinning. There it goes.
I don't know what episode number this is, but you're listening to the Stroke of Success podcast with my guy KB.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Stroke of Success podcast. Here we have a special guest. I'm going to give you a brief history how I came across. I'm a podcaster now, very new at this still, but I do a lot of research. I'm a big fan, follower of Patrick Bet-David, looking at his interviews, Grant Cardone, and then I came across the rabbit hole, and I came across David Merrell's podcast. And he starts, once you get into the YouTube channel, you see from everyone and anyone, all the entrepreneurs across the board, real estate, insurance, podcasters, everyone. I'm like, wow, this is where I want to be like. So I reached out to David, and he agreed to do my podcast. David, thank you so much for jumping on today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to be here, and thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. David, let's get started. Where were you born and raised?
Where was I born and raised? Born in Montreal, Quebec. Raised out west though, so Calgary, Vancouver, Alberta boy, basically. And about 5 years ago, I moved back to Montreal. So I am an East Coast guy at heart, I think. So Montreal is my home city.
That's awesome. Come from a rich family, poor family, middle class?
Middle class. Middle class, yeah.
Dad, mom worked hard.
It's interesting. I learned a lot from my dad. I think my dad was probably my biggest mentor in a lot of ways. My dad was a very high risk, high reward type of guy, so took a lot of chances. We moved around a little bit when I was younger, just based on the fact that my dad got bored real quick. So I learned about entrepreneurship from him. He would start businesses, sell businesses, make money, lose money, high risk, high reward, like I said. So he very, very high risk taker, not for the faint of heart. So I often think about my mother and what she had to put up with my dad, but great guy. I learned a lot from him. Quick decision maker, very smart, intelligent guy. My mother too, very principled. So, if I had a, principled question, I would ask my parents for sure, and they were very good about that. They gave me a lot of leash too when I was younger to make my own decisions. So I think that was good. They kind of threw me into the water and let me figure out how to swim for myself. So I appreciated that about them. So I think that led me down the path of what I did pretty early on with entrepreneurial endeavors. But yeah, that's kind of my background when it comes to my upbringing, for sure.
I mean, I think that's it, right? That was probably your catalyst of the entrepreneurship, flip switch, so to speak, right? That happened. How old were you when you said, hey, wait a minute, you know what? I could become this, I could become that, but you know what? I'm going to do entrepreneurship.
I think I always had an entrepreneurial kind of mind and mindset. But it was real estate that really did it for me. I was doing various things, and I'd done some club promotion. I did after hours stuff. I was DJ. I had I had a carpet cleaning business I owned. I had there was a lot of things I was doing. I think my my dad, he sat me down. He said, you should really get into real estate. They make these big commission checks, was his thought, right? You can sell, if you figure out how to sell, you should be in commission sales. And I didn't understand it at the time, but, years later, I realized, you could make more money than a doctor or a lawyer with, a month of schooling is what it was at the time. So, and that's what happened. I got into real estate, and I found the industry and the business somewhat archaic. And I've started to apply, not just sales principles, but branding and marketing principles and things like that back to the business. And I had a lot of success with it. And we started teams. And of course, I own a brokerage now. So I've been through every iteration of the actual industry. But, I don't know the exact age, but I think it was when my dad sat me down and said, get into commission sales because you'll do well. And he was right.
Dude, that's interesting. I'll tell you back story. I know when so by then my father left us at a young age. So my uncles raised me. They're like, no commission, no. So you have to get a degree get a 9 to 5 corporate job and work there 34 years and get retirement. And like you, I was naturally, I saw my mom as a salesperson, so I very naturally had this thing about salesmanship and entrepreneurship. So I always had a struggle. I wish I had someone like your dad saying to me, hey, no, you can do that. How old were you when you got into real estate?
Yeah, I don't remember the exact, in my 20s.
Okay.
So I've been in the business 23, 24 years now, something like
Okay.
that. It's been a
Okay.
while. My 20s, I don't remember the exact age, actually. I should probably figure it out, but
It was before the bubble or the 20s?
I've looked through a couple. So 1999, 2000, something like that. So
Okay. Oh yeah. So you've been in the game for a while.
yeah, I've been through a few ups and downs in the industry, and of course across the country too, because we're in multiple marketplaces, so
Sure.
a lot of different locations. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that your father played a big role in your part, you should be very grateful because that's the biggest feedback I get. Like I'm starting a coaching program. I have people texting me, DMing me, like, how can we get our family support to do that, right? So you're very lucky. Your first year in real estate, I know it's been a long time. How'd you do the first year? Like, was it
very good, actually? Yeah, I did very good my first year, and I think that's what kind of flipped the switch. I was like, this isn't hard. I can get people to sign on the dotted line and trust me with the sale of their property. I was able to do that quite young. I was a hustler. I didn't. I think that's one of the biggest things. Early on, it's so funny looking back, all the lessons that my dad taught me. One of the things he said was, do you know what makes a good salesperson? It doesn't matter what you're selling, whether it's houses or widget, it doesn't matter. What makes a good salesperson? I thought, smarts, education, something like that. And he said, no, you can handle rejection. What makes a good salesperson is they can move on from the no's and it doesn't sting as much. You can move on quickly. And I thought, oh, okay, that's a thought. Didn't really think about it until, I got into real estate. And then you realize, people are going to say no. How much experience do you have? How many properties have you sold? Have you sold something on this block in this neighborhood, or whatever? And if you can't handle those objections or you can't handle the no's, then you're going to have a really hard time. I moved on quick, and it was really funny. Not too long ago, I saw an interview with Barbara Corcoran, right? Barbara Corcoran, Shark Tank. Yeah. She, Corcoran brokerage, et cetera. And she was being interviewed on, I think it was CNN. And, they asked her what differentiates a really successful agent in her brokerage from a not so successful agent. There's agents that make $1 million in GCI every year and agents that make 20 to 30,000 a year in GCI. She said the biggest difference is they're able to handle rejection. And I went, bing. It was the same thing my dad said. And it's true, right? You're able to move on quicker. Darren Hardy talks about going, getting as many no's as you can until you get that yes. If you can't handle dealing with people, their objections, their no's, then you shouldn't be in sales. And the ones that can get over it quicker and move on are the ones that are successful. So I think I did that early on. I was young, didn't know any different. I just kept going. I knocked on doors. I did everything, you name it. I handed out cards to every person I know. I had people on mailers, I had signs up, I did everything, and I did pretty well my first year. And then I realized that, it's not going to be that big of a stretch to separate yourself from the pack. And then I realized not every agent is successful for a lot of different reasons. So, I train and coach agents every day now. That's, what I do as well with our brokerage. And, I've seen a lot of changes in the industry, but I always say, hey, you got to be able to move on from the no. Some can't. Some can't. Some aren't, cut out for sales, and especially real estate. Your people with their biggest assets have to trust you, so you have to be able to talk about that with authority.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but David, do you get training, like sales training, mentoring? Like, what's the guy? Your guy who's on your Ferry, Mike Ferry,
Tom Ferry.
Tom Ferry, yeah. And his program is amazing. I haven't done it, but people talk about it. I mean, did you ever go into those type of programs and learn?
Yeah, I haven't taken Tom Ferry training, but
similar ones.
Yeah, he's just Mr. Content in real estate. He's a good guy to have on the show. But yes, we've spent a lot of, myself and my partner, the two of us own the brokerage, and we've spent a lot of money on training and coaching, mentorship, mastermind groups over the years, well into the 6 figures for sure. So we spent a lot on that. So I'm a big believer in it. I think you need to spend money on training and coaching,
So question, how about self-development? A little different than coaching, right? It's a mindset, right? Like, what's your thoughts about that? Like, do you believe that mindset is everything?
Well, there's tactical, and then there's, there's a difference, there's, training and coaching, and then, there's mentorship, right? So I find mentorship is more, again, principled, broad stroke mindset. And then I believe that, tactical training and coaching, I think you need both, like say these words to this people with the script, that's training and coaching. In some ways, mentorship is more about how you're viewing, the vision, where you want to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, work your way back. What does that look like? So I'm, the last few years, especially, I've become more of a believer in kind of like the long-term vision, legacy for some, to some degree. I think mindset is everything, to be honest with you. And I wish I had discovered that a lot sooner.
Yeah, me too.
Like, I really wish I had, and I wish I had sought knowledge sooner too. Now I'm like just insatiable with wanting to acquire as much information as possible.
I do too. I think we're very similar in age. I'm 41. I started real estate when I was 21. We're in South Florida market. And I got a lot of rejections, right? I was a loan officer, a real estate guy, and I left, right? And looking back, like, I think my mindset was not strong. Fast forward, my stroke happened 5 years ago. I couldn't walk, couldn't talk, almost died. For me to survive that and be able to find entrepreneurship, it was this thing, well, wait a minute, if I can do that, I can do this, I can do anything I want. And the limiting beliefs that I have are, well, you know what? To make 6 figures, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. You have to go to school for X amount of years, and you need a steady paycheck. And these limited belief system and a weak mindset were holding me back. And I think, to your point, I think for my agents, I always talk to them, hey, first thing, mindset, get that strong. If you have a strong mindset, you can learn how to do phone calls, door knock, rejections, rebuttals, all that stuff. So you're very much aligned the same way. How many agents do you have total right now, David?
Roughly 100, something like that. Yeah.
You seem like this, like, no big deal. Like, like
Yeah.
you're kind of flexing, man. Like 100 is a lot of agents.
Yeah.
How many offices do you have all over?
4.
What markets are you in?
Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, interior of BC. Yeah.
Okay. So you're not in the US.
That's an experiment.
Okay.
Yes, it's an experiment. So I don't, I'm not talking about that in depth yet. It's a new market for us. So we do have a license in the US right now.
Awesome.
So yeah, I mean, what we do is a little bit different. We're not your traditional bricks and mortar. Our model, I was in a meeting the other day, and the phrase we heard was, you have the model of the future. And I thought, yeah, okay, I believe it. We've kind of created something that thinks about it's from the bottom up in a lot of ways, because I came from a traditional bricks and mortar background originally. And it's, collect agents, sell services. It's not the same, right? Our motto is to help agents make more money, keep more money, while streamlining, keeping it lean, and providing the things they need. Again, the industry is very archaic. So a lot of bricks and mortar, brokerages are having issues. So what we're, what we're doing is very appealing to, people that hear about it. We don't do, your traditional type of recruiting. We don't call agents and say, hey, are you looking to make, nothing like that. Our growth has been very organic. So again, we started, with teams, and, they tell friends and they tell friends, and the word gets out, and they see some of the disruptive stuff we do, which is very disruptive where we are, and it kind of grabs attention. So people find out about it. We are protective of our culture and chemistry. So I don't think every agent's a fit for what we do. We have very high producing agents here, a lot of them. I do believe it's something that's a little bit different from, like I said, your traditional bricks and mortar. So, when you talk about the States or other marketplaces, we can light up pretty quick. But some things, we got the luxury now of, if it doesn't interest us or we don't want to be in that place, we're not going to do it.
You're good.
So that's kind of the long story longer about.
No, I mean, look, you built a brand, a reputable brand. I mean, you've been in the marketplace yourself for 20 years, pretty much, probably more than that. So I get that. People you looked up to while you were coming up, and sports players, movie stars, politicians, athletes, anyone, motivational people, Tony Robbins.
People I looked up to. I'm a design branding guy, so I'm very much looking at the world of fashion and art and music and things like that for inspiration. You know, funny to say, and it's very controversial to say, but Donald Trump was a guy, like my dad was from New York, and he was a fan of Trump, and I watched Trump go from a business to a brand to I'm older than you actually, so I saw him go from a business to a brand to a politician. So it was kind of interesting to see the evolution of a guy like that with just a ton of hustle. And in terms of music, I always talked about Kanye a lot because I thought Kanye was the originator of hacking culture. Shoe Empire is worth $1 billion, and he did some interesting stuff, and he would start a trend. He would wear something and people go, that looks weird, it doesn't look right, and then all of a sudden everybody be wearing it. So I look at people like that. Listen, I picked the two most controversial people you could think of, right? Trump and Kanye. But I'm not saying that I emulate them or wanted to be like them. I just find it interesting from a branding design perspective. I find things like that interesting, something that grabs attention. But like I said, people I looked up to, my dad, I really looked up to my dad, my business partner, Nathan. I mean, he's a great guy, good family guy. He's a fantastic example. I didn't really have necessarily a mentor per se or somebody I looked up to. Now when I look around, knowing what I know, I find, I think Grant Cardone's one of the greatest marketers of all time.
All time.
Yeah, of all time. Polarizing for sure, but the guy is just relentless and he's incredible. Talk about not accepting no for an answer, letting it, brush off his shoulders. There's nobody like Grant Cardone when it comes to marketing. I think he's one of the greatest marketers of all time. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys. I've interviewed quite a few people that I'm very impressed with. Patrick Bet-David's one of them. I've interviewed him. I think he's fantastic. Ryan Serhant a couple of times I
saw that.
I've had him on the show. He, when it comes to, an actual real estate brand, fantastic. I've interviewed highly intelligent people too, and
sure,
that make a difference, like Andy Frisella, one of the most cerebral, most intelligent guys when it comes to real estate marketing in general is Jay Abraham. Nobody like him. I've had him speak to our company, actually, on our company mastermind. So I've had him speak to our agents. I've had Tom Ferry speak to our agents. I've had Grant Cardone speak to our agents, the company mastermind. So guys like that, guys that have had some longevity and success, I think are really good to take a look at for sure.
So, David, I'm sorry, man. I can't go forward, man. Kanye and Trump, sorry, man.
No. Listen,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
Listen, anybody listening, I do not condone what they say. I do not condone their politics. None of that stuff. I'm just talking purely from a branding perspective.
So I'm gonna jump in quickly. So I'm gonna say, I'm the host of the podcast. No politics, nothing. I 100%, 200% agree with you on both of those people. I'm a New Yorker, born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Like you said, you're older than me. I saw Trump, 80s, 90s, 2000. Forget the politics. Forget the stuff he says. Forget disagreeing, agreeing. The brand, the way he has built himself, hate him or love him, you have to look at the facts.
Yeah.
The guy did something pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Well, I remember, did you say you were from Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, so you were around in 80s, early 90s, right?
Yes.
The old grimy New York. Trump was Mr. New York, man. Trump Tower, and you had Trump ties and the clothing, and you had Trump water, and he was a brand. He was the original walking IP, right? That was him. And then he had The Apprentice, and I loved that show. I thought it was fantastic. So he had The Apprentice. Right. And he had all that stuff going on, and, Mr. Real Estate and the Art of the Deal. He had the game. He was just the original brand. And then he became president. It's the craziest thing.
It's the craziest.
So listen, I don't care. Again, not talking politics. I don't care what you're doing. The guy is a case study in branding.
Exactly.
anyway, and same with-
anyone in entrepreneurship, and on that same tone, I'm with you on Kanye, man. Like, I like his music,
yeah.
but he changed the game, and he calls himself like a Picasso. In a way, he is, man. Like, we don't like he got a new device, so you have to buy the device to hear his music. Like, that's genius.
Well, it's really funny because, again, another case study in branding, right? Like I can't tell you how many pairs of Yeezys I have, and I'm always wearing a pair, but I gave a keynote one time, and I just, for the fun of it, because I thought it was relevant, I called it, "What does Kanye West have to do with your real estate business?" And the answer was everything, because it was talking about scarcity and creating something that people want and need and all that type of stuff, right? And how he basically hacked culture. And I think that's one of the biggest changes in the real estate industry when it comes to personal branding, right? Is creating something that people know, like, and trust, eventually wanting to be a part of it, paying attention to it. So I applied it to the real estate industry and the everyday business of an agent. But it grabbed attention. We had a picture of Kanye on the slides and said, "What does he have to do with the real estate business?" And my point was, it had to do. Everybody's like wondering, like, what does he have to do with my business?
That's pretty cool, man. I couldn't think of that one. I think I'm creative, but the way we put that's pretty badass, man.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
Let's go to talk about some of your guests, man. Like David, man, you have the top of the people, like top of the line people, like PBD. PBD is huge right now. Like, I've been following him since 2018. He was an insurance guy, right? And he was on stage, but now, like, he's blowing up. Like, how was your interaction with him, and what'd you learn about him? Like,
yeah, great, exactly as I expected. I was introduced to him through Michael Francis. So Michael Francis is he's been on the show twice.
I'm a big fan of his too.
Yeah, and he's coming up again. Actually, I got him coming up again it'll be our third, just with some updates and things like that. So awesome. I was introduced to him through that. Very bright guy, super intelligent. We talked a lot about entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship, and very smart guy. He did. What's interesting, I'm not comparing myself to Patrick Bet-David, but it wasn't until I interviewed him that I realized that he did something similar to what we're doing. So I'm in the real estate business, right? I own a real estate brokerage. He's in the insurance business, owns an insurance brokerage. He went into multiple locations. We went into multiple locations. He started a podcast, which became Valuetainment, which was a separate entity from,
insurance and everything else.
Or he started with insurance. I think he was doing videos on insurance. Then he moved.
Yes, he was. And they said, "Hey, branch it out to something else."
Yeah. So I did the same thing. I didn't even realize I did the exact same thing. So I started a podcast based on branding with the brokerage, because I thought it was a good vehicle for, the brokerage branding. And I quickly got bored of real estate interviews. After a handful, I'm like, I don't want to do these. I want to talk about entrepreneurship and creativity and. Sure. Best-selling authors and hip-hop legends. And so what I started doing was going outside the industry, and I started interviewing, people that were, top of their class in different industries, and applying principles back to entrepreneurship and real estate. So I started doing the same thing Patrick Bet-David was doing. It was really funny because I didn't realize that, he was interviewing, Francis from that perspective. And I'd heard Francis years ago. I think it was on the Jim Rome show. So I was always fascinated with his story. I talked to, Michael Francis and his wife, and I got to know him. He came on the show the guy was so generous. He came on for, a two-parter. We sat for hours. Then I had him come speak to our brokerage. I think we're the only real estate brokerage that has a former mob boss from the Columbus.
I think so.
That spoke to our agents, but
I think so.
Yeah, I think we are. Again, talking disruptive, right? So again, taking, principles and applying them back to business. So, but Patrick Bet-David, super smart guy, super intelligent, quick thinker, on the go. He's very generous with his time. I'm super embarrassed because it was the first time. We had been talking for a long time, but it was the first time I actually had to take a restroom break in the middle of a podcast. I kid you not. It embarrassing because it's funny now, like looking back, but it was embarrassing. Yeah. And I was talking to I'm friends with Brad Lee, and he's just like, "How did the interview with Patrick Bet-David go?" I said, I had to go to the bathroom. He goes, "You what?" I said, "I had to go, man."
That's insane.
So, So
sounds good.
Patrick Bet David, I remember him giving me a hard time. He goes, "You're the first interviewer that's taken a
That's
bath."
insane.
Said, listen, man, like
Human,
I
man,
have to
human.
go, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
You have to go. You have to go. Ryan Serhant, man, like let's go back to a case study.
Yep.
Guy came back when the bubble was popping, 2008, 9. Got on the show. He's good friends with the guy here, a local guy here named Ken Posnack, I think is a broker here. And I interviewed him last 2 weeks ago. And I said, hey, Ken, did you ask him, like, did the show blow him up? And he goes, according to Ken, told me that Ryan says not 100%, like it helped magnify some things, but Ryan's hard work, right, determination. And that's, as a brand, YouTube, we kill YouTube. We had 2 different channels, right? What's the thoughts about Ryan Serhant and the brand and how he made everything?
Yeah, so the show definitely blew him up.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a show.
Yeah.
Like give
On
you
TV.
a show. Like KB, if we gave you a show or me a show,
Yeah.
you know, we would blow up.
Sure.
What's interesting about Ryan then, again, you know, very intelligent guy, very smart, is he understands that at the end of the day, his job is to buy and sell real estate and grow his brand. He understands that. So he's very strategic. Like if you listen to him talk, if you listen, you know, he's asking for referrals in a subtle way. You know, I'm your New York real estate guy. And I've sent him referrals, right? Like I've sent him business, right? Or, you know, clients and whatnot. You know, we had, you know, we you know, work brokers that transacts in crypto. So we've had, you know, so we get a lot of attention that way. So I'd sent them a New York crypto transaction or whatever it was. I don't know what happened exactly, but, and then I was introduced to somebody else from the show. I can't remember the name of it. I don't watch the show anymore. I don't think it's still on anymore.
No, it's not on anymore.
Yeah.
That's
anyway.
what I checked last time I checked, but maybe, who knows?
Yeah. So, and it's the same, you know, like I said, I've had Serhant on the show a couple times. Same with James Harris. Have had him on the show a couple times. That's $1 Million Listing Los Angeles, him and David Parnes. Now they're, again, at the end of the day, they know what their job is. They're very strategic. They're not jumping on podcasts or interviews or whatever without generating a lead, growing their brand, or understanding, you know, what's in it for them and what's in it for you, right? So I think that, you know, Ryan, very smart, knows what he's doing, right? Everything is strategic from this to this to this. I think he's very methodical. I think he thinks, you know, he zooms way out and he goes, okay, this is where I want to be 5 years from now. And then he makes the moves to do that. But listen to him. He asks for referrals. I'm your New York real estate guy. He just does.
I mean, originally there was Frederick, Ryan, and Lewis. And Lewis has left the show and I don't know what he was doing. I love Lewis, a shorter Spanish guy. Frederick's killing it, right? He's a big time New York and California. But I think Ryan is the one that's in everyone's head, you know? Yeah,
I think out of everyone on the show, I think he's the one that people know the most. I said that to him on the show, actually. I said, hey, I think you're the one that everybody knows the most. He's like, that's surprising. I said, come on.
Yeah.
Why is that surprising? Like everybody knows. So, you know, I did ask him about that. I said, why do you think that is? I think he's just prolific, man. He's everywhere, you know, and these days you gotta be everywhere. Yeah.
Yes. Altman is another one from California. Josh Altman. He's up there too. He's not liked very much. I noticed a lot of people, but like people like Ryan Serhant. You had Robert Kiyosaki on, right?
Yeah, just had Robert Kiyosaki on.
He's controversial, man.
We edit the show.
Okay.
we edit the show, but he's at a point in his life where he does not care, you know, what he says, or, you know, he was talking about a man, he went through the, you know, he went through the world tour of controversy on our show. That's for sure. I mean, if anybody's listening to this, you got to go listen to my interview with Robert Kiyosaki, because the guy's phenomenal. He's the #1 personal finance book of all time, the author of the #1 personal finance book of all time, but very controversial dude. One of the things I've noticed, though, it's funny because some of the clips from the show, anything that's got Robert Kiyosaki's name on it, is either, I don't want to say buried or shadow banned or whatever, but it's very interesting to see, you know, the numbers and engagement with the Robert Kiyosaki clips, because it's not the same, even though he's saying things that are mind blowing, you know. Yeah,
I saw him at Patrick's show, Patrick the Vault, PBD the show. He does every year. It happened last year in Fort Lauderdale. I was there, and he just went off. And there are people next to me cringing. Look, I think a big part of PBD's audience is Republican.
Yeah.
Capitalists, right? but a lot of them are not. They're people all over the world, and they're like, I'm like, wow, homeboy just he went overboard.
Well, he's a funny dude, man. I had a great time with him because actually, to be honest with you, I was a little worried because he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He doesn't do a lot of them. I know he does some live events and things like that, but he doesn't do a lot of podcasts, and he doesn't do, media per se. And the last couple of interviews I saw that he had done, he tore the interviewer to shreds. There was one he did in Romania where he was just lighting this guy up for not knowing anything. I don't want to do your stupid show. You're an idiot. He was like it was crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know which Kiyosaki I'm going to get here. We had a great time. He really let his hair down with me, and he kind of said some things, like talked about how he got court-martialed twice, for flying his helicopter with women in it drunk, in the military. He talked about flying behind enemy lines to buy gold. He talked about, bull semen because he's into like breeding Wagyu cattle now. He talked about his friend Trump. He talked about, hunting with the Trump boys. So yeah, he does get really controversial, but I don't think he cares.
No, he doesn't care. I don't think he cares at all. Question for you was rules. Do you think in entrepreneurship, those that break the rules, not law, this isn't, I'm gonna be careful. I'm not advocating people to break laws, but bend the truth and get yourself in situations, opportunities. Like, is that true that you have to do that to be successful? You're super successful. I look up to you. What's your thoughts on that?
I think you do. I think you have to push boundaries. I think again, going back to some of the things my dad said, it's only the people that are doing stuff that get in trouble, right? The guys making change, taking chances and doing things that are outside the norm. Depending on your industry, I find most industries, if they're governed, they want everybody fitting into a box, all doing the same thing, making the same amount of money, doing the same thing. In order to push those boundaries, you're going to get into a little bit of trouble. Again, keep it lawful, like obviously, right? But I think you do have to bend rules a little bit and perceptions and what's thought of as normal. Even with our podcast, it was funny. We started the podcast. Of course, it's branded after our company, ří, right? Run ří. And it was branded after our company, and we were doing real estate interviews, and then all of a sudden we started doing hip hop legends and graffiti artists and mob bosses, and people started to go, wait a minute, you can't do that on a real estate show. And we said, watch us, and nothing was off the table because we started to get really interesting, and it grabbed a lot of attention. The show started to blow up, and guests became bigger and bigger. And now people are looking, go, wait, I guess we can do that. Every 2 weeks, our brokerage hosts a mastermind where we bring in guest speakers to talk to our agents. I got Chris Voss coming up, best-selling author of Never Split the Difference, former lead FBI
100%
negotiator. I've had
him.
Michael Francis speak, Weldon Long, again, Grant Cardone. I've had these people come speak to our brokerage, right? Which isn't typical for
a real estate company to do that.
Not typical, man. We just had Jason Stone, Millionaire Mentor, he's an influencer, 11 million followers, whatever. He came to talk to our brokerage about, social media and how to go viral, et cetera, and those type of things. So what's in, and I got some really big ones coming up actually in terms of our brokerage masterminds, gpgmastermindseries.com. If you should come to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. gpgmastermindseries.com, industry-wide events, but for about an hour every second Tuesday. But again, outside the norm. And, what starts to happen is when people see it working, they start to emulate it. They start to copy it. And I've seen that happen now. I've seen a lot of people start to copy the same thing. And same with the podcast. Very difficult, I think, to replicate kind of our path for sure. I don't think there's a blueprint to what we did with the podcast, but I get really bored with podcasts, probably like you, so I've got my own show, but very few actual podcasts I really listen to.
I agree with you. You married?
Yes.
Kids?
Yes, 2.
Dude, hold on, man. You look great. I thought you're in your 30s. I'm not listen. First time we're talking, dude. What's the secret, dude? You're busy entrepreneur, multiple businesses going on. What's the secret?
Well, skin regimen.
Okay.
So my wife has me on a skin regimen. I've been married 26 years.
God
26
bless.
years. Yeah. I got a daughter, got married last year.
You have a daughter that got married last year?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I have a daughter that got married last year. So no, I like I have a very, I think a healthy lifestyle. I work out every morning. I do a little bit of, I'm really into breath work now. I've just discovered that, I'm, as I get older and long in the tooth, as we say, like get long in the tooth, I get older. Your routines and looking after your health is important. Stay hydrated, read, make sure your mindset is right, things like that.
How about cold plunges?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, I'm a huge, for years I've been doing cold water therapy big time. Although right now I have to take a break because I have a frozen shoulder. So they're telling me, the acupuncturist, the physiotherapist, saying stay away from cold water for now, because we have to. It's kind of funny because I always thought cold water plunges takes down the inflammation, which it does, but frozen shoulders are, they're inflamed shoulders that limit movement. So I got to stay away from it, which is killing me because I love the cold water, man. I do it every morning.
Wow.
So
yeah. Okay.
Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I stay young. Look, I mean, I don't, a lot of my friends are younger too, so I remember it was funny because I used to get invited to the parties that my daughters would. And they used to get embarrassed. They're like, Dad, you can't come to this party. I wouldn't, right? To embarrass, I just wouldn't. But the funny thing is the younger, I've always hung out with kind of like younger people, and I used to tell my kids I'm the cool dad, and they didn't believe it. But now I think they're starting to come
I
around.
think so, dude.
Yeah.
You definitely are the cool dad. Let's take some notes from you. I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Oh, fun years, man. Fun years.
Yeah. I do. My wife is crying. She's like, you know what? They're gonna grow up so fast. Let's get number 3 on the board. I'm like, do it. We'll take our time with getting number 3 on the board. I'm a big advocate, big supporter of daily routines, and so far I've been blessed. My podcast new, following your footsteps. One day I hope I can get a fraction of the people you got.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Seriously, you're doing kick-ass, man. But the people that have gone so far, every one of them say the same thing. Maybe we have a routine. And some of them have a thing, they wake up in the morning, they do a journal of gratitude, they do a law of attraction, visualization. What's your, David, what do you do daily routine for my viewers, my listeners? They can say, hey, you know what, this guy David's so badass. If we do what he did, it can help us in our life. My
morning routine is the order might be different, but the tasks are the same. So I do write in the mornings. I do. First thing I wake up, I breathe. I have a cup of coffee almost immediately. But now I've been mixing in for the last year. I hydrate. So I do a full glass of mineral water with apple cider vinegar, lemon, and Himalayan sea salt, just to hydrate. So I've been doing that. I've noticed a big difference with the hydration in the morning, but I had a cup of coffee first thing almost immediately. I used to mix in ಶಿಖಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿಚಿchichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichichi towards specific vitamins and things like that. So same thing, cocktail of vitamins. I tend not to eat in the morning for the most part. Run anywhere between 7.5 to 10 kilometers every morning. So I don't know what that is in miles. What is that? 6 miles?
I think so. Yeah.
6, 7 miles, something like that. So yeah, about 10K. Like if I'm feeling good and strong, I'll run 10K, but it's always about 7.5 every morning. I do some stretching, slight bit of resistance work, just because I've got some issues with some joints. I don't go heavy with the weights. I want to. That's in the mix. Going forward, I want to build some bulk at some point. So I do that. I do some reading every morning for sure. A few other things. I check my email, do all that stuff. Prep for any meetings I got for the week. I like to kind of like prepare for the week on Sundays.
Yes.
I don't know if you do the same thing. Do you do the same?
Do.
Yeah. So I'll take a look at what I got coming up, and I'll send out any emails and whatever, and just go over my notes for this, that, and the third on Sunday nights. And then, my weeks are pretty organic. Mornings stay about the same, but my weeks are pretty organic. Both my daughters are out of the house now. So it's a different kind of a different life, for just me and my wife, but we're having fun. Yeah. We're having a lot of fun. It's just, we got our dog, but
Yeah. Yeah. You have a stylist, bro. Your attire, every podcast I'm like, dude, I'm taking notes. Like your dad jacket's amazing. His glasses, like you have someone who styles you?
No, I should be a stylist though, KB. I should. Well, who I got coming on the show this afternoon is Nick Wooster. Do you know who Nick Wooster is?
No.
He's a fashion icon. He's been on the cover of GQ a couple times, Vogue.
Okay.
He's creative director for Ralph Lauren, Calvin Klein, one of the biggest fashion gurus, most photographed men. Go look this guy up. He's social media. Yeah. So I'm really excited about interviewing him, but I take fashion seriously, my guy. I really pay attention to it.
I can tell.
Yeah.
They say that, right? You have to look good to feel good. I mean, let's be honest, right? Not for everyone, right? But
I'm particular about, I didn't realize I was naturally into branding until I discovered what branding actually was and what it means. So I think, I always like to stay consistent with my look for the most part and whatever. And I like things to look a certain way. I mean, I don't have, I don't have, a dedicated studio. That's next on the list, is to have a in-person studio, but I do pay attention to that stuff. Thanks for noticing, my man.
Dude, absolutely.
Thanks for noticing.
I'm very inspired, man. I thought you had a nice black cashmere sweater on. I'm like, dude, I'm going to interview David. And my wife's like, what's wrong with you? Wear, blazer. No. This guy is trendy, honey. They have to dress the part. David, it's been a lot of fun talking to you. I'm going to have a part 2 with you, man, down the road to get some time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I had a great time. Maybe I come up there, fly, and we'll do a face-to-face with you, man. I'd love to do that.
Have you been to Montreal?
No.
You would love it there.
I'm coming.
Yeah, bring your wife, bring the kids.
Yes.
They'll love it. You got to come in the spring, summer. Always stuff going on here. They have more. This is true. They have more festivals in Montreal than days in the year. Wow. So they have festivals. They shut down the streets, and it's beautiful. It's kind of a mix between New York and Europe. It's a very old city. It's beautiful. I love it.
You know what? Tell me, and I'll let you know way in advance. We'll coordinate our date. Where can we find you, David?
Well, you can, the podcast page is rungpg.com, so RUNGPG.com for the podcast. Brokerage website is greaterpropertygroup.com. You can see the marketplaces we're in there. And then I think, social, I'm on all the socials, but again, relatively new, but Instagram at the Greater David, and the Greater David meaning Greater Property Group, Greater Good, etc. Not because I'm a better David. I'll put
a link in my description. But yeah, man, it's been amazing. Thank you for jumping on, David. You're awesome.
My pleasure. And hey, watch for the newest episodes coming up. You're gonna be, you're gonna, especially you. I know you. Yeah. You're gonna love them.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much, KB.
Thank you.
Hanging out.